That was real good. That was money, first of all.
Hey everybody, I'm Chris Knight. This is the Real Review 3000, and this is another episode of Movie Talk with Chris and Stig. Today we're going to talk, believe it or not, we're going to talk about Jaws. So you see that picture right there. That's the movie we're going to talk about today. And Stig, I know that you are a really, really big fan of this movie. So tell me why.
Um, I just love it. Made a huge impact on me when I saw it as a kid. You shouldn't watch it when you're a kid, especially if you're living on an island. But but I did, and it's one of those movies that I just like it more and more every time I watch it. And to me, I'd say it's a perfect movie for what it's trying to do, and those are few and far between, aren't they?
Well, that's true. There are a lot of movies out there, and every so often you get that perfect storm of actors, story, uh, cinematography, you know, soundtrack. This has all of it.
It's like the Lord of the Rings had it too, I think.
Yeah, I mean, Lord of the Rings is a beautiful masterpiece, and so is this movie. I personally am, I've taken film appreciation classes, and this is one movie that I've seen in several of those classes. And every time it comes up that what you see on the screen does not nearly give you the story of what was happening behind the screen.
Yeah, I'd well, it's a horror movie, but I'd say it's a horror movie dressed up as a drama movie almost because of the deep fleshing out of all the characters and their motivation, which is something horror movies rarely do.
Yeah, I
And it's I guess what they're trying to do is save their society because the island that they live on depends on tourism, and the
mhm.
shark shows up and messes things up. So it's almost like a natural disaster movie in a way.
It is. I mean, I think you point out a really big fact in this movie that most people, when they watch it, may not understand. The island and the islanders are a character in and of themselves.
Yeah.
And if you've ever read the book, which I don't know if you have or if anybody watches this, if they have, but in the book, it's very prevalent. In fact, it's probably the biggest character, even above, Hooper or Brody or Quint or any of them. It's all about the economy, the people on the island, and the island itself.
Yeah. Um, I think I've said this before, but in a story, the setting and or, or the universe it's set in is the most important character. I mean, picture Harry Potter without the fleshed out Hogwarts and all the lore,
Yep.
or the Lord of the Rings without a fleshed out Middle Earth. It wouldn't be the same at all. It's very important because the setting and the universe is what m- makes the viewer feel at home.
Yeah, I can totally agree with that. It, I mean, it's done so well in this movie. It's an afterthought. You know that the Islanders, they constantly mention we can't close down the beach because our economy. And there's the scene when they are in the hospital with Brody's son, and Brody pulls the mayor aside and he says, you're going to sign this now. You're going to give me my allocation of funds so we can kill this shark. And there's a moment when the mayor just kind of mumbles to himself, August, August. And he's trying to figure in his head, is there something they can do to salvage the summer? And that's when Brody comes out and says, you don't get it. Summer's over. This is done.
Yeah. And you kind of have to sympathize a little with the mayor because he's responsible for the whole island. And if summer doesn't happen for them, they're screwed.
Yeah, and in that same scene, you do understand that he's juggling, one, the safety of the people and the safety or the well-being of the people.
Yeah.
Because he says, Brody, you don't understand. My kids were on that beach too. So he kind of gets that this is a situation he has to fix.
Yeah, he was probably as terrified as Brody was.
Yeah.
When the shark showed up at the beach.
Mm-hmm. So,
this is actually something I wish they would have kept in the second movie, when the city council votes to fire Brody. The only one who votes for not firing Brody is the mayor.
Mm-hmm.
But that scene was cut, which is a shame, really.
It is. The second movie wasn't directed by Spielberg. He was supposed to. He got a hold of the script and stuff, if I remember right, and he said no. If he had come back, there's some talk that Richard Dreyfuss as Hooper would have been back, and that never happened. I think if Spielberg would have come back for the second one, it would have been a much better movie.
Still, it wasn't half bad, though.
No, it wasn't. It was a good sequel.
Yeah.
I really like this movie, again, because, like I said, I know the background, what happened behind the scenes, and when I watch it and I see how well the movie came across for the screen, I personally think that this movie comes across as even more perfect than what you see.
Yeah, I actually did a little digging.
Mm-hmm.
This is some cool trivia for you. In the movie, Hooper mentions that this has happened before in 1916 in New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
And the attacks that happened back then, and they're real.
Yeah.
And they all happened the same way they happen in Jaws. First it's a swimmer, then a dog, then a boy, and then a guy gets his leg ripped off.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly the same sequence as in the movie. Which is probably deliberate.
I would say absolutely. Mirroring real life helps movies sometimes.
Yeah.
And it keeps this one. I mean, we have to understand they're talking about what, a 25-foot great white, and I'm not sure what the largest one ever is.
Well, they can get pretty big down in Australia, but I don't think 25 is. I think they're probably smaller.
Yeah, I'm looking right now. It was 19.7 feet, and that was in 1987 in Australia. So, I mean, so when you watch this movie, a lot of this stuff should be making you feel like it's not real. But the way they did it, the way they shot certain scenes, it feels real.
Yeah, it's so well done by Spielberg. This is easily one of his best movies, in my opinion. But even the shark, it's mechanic, and sometimes you can kind of tell, especially where the jaws meet in the corner of his mouth.
Yeah.
But it still looks real enough.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
Well, you see, part of that comes down to is because the salt water and the environment it was in, it caused the two, I believe there were two or three mechanical sharks to malfunction so much that they had to find other ways to shoot scenes and imply the shark was there.
Yeah, and those are actually the scariest scenes.
Yeah, like at the beginning when you see uh, they're coming through the algae and stuff in the opening scene, and there's just a camera moving underwater. All of the camera underwater that's supposed to be the shark originally was going to be filmed from inside Bruce and showing the teeth,
Hmm.
but they could never get that. So somehow the way they made it look feels more ominous because now you feel like you're seeing what the shark sees.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And there's a wonderful scene in the movie of where those two guys are trying to fish the shark from the docks,
Mm-hmm.
and that I think is the scariest scene in the movie
Oh yeah,
because the docks get torn down and one of them gets dragged out, and then the it's kind of dark and the dock just turns and starts following them. That scene always gave me the chills because the shark's right under it.
mm-hmm. So the fact that they had to change things, I think, make this movie even better. The scene right above me where the barrels are being dragged around after they shoot it with the harpoon, that was done because Bruce wouldn't work. They were originally going to show Bruce towing the boat, if I remember right, and they couldn't get the scene right. So they did this scene where they had something underwater towing these buoys or the barrels. And I think that comes across even scarier than if you've seen the shark doing it.
Yeah, because the shark actually comes off as more powerful because he keeps diving no matter how many barrels they stick in him.
Mm-hmm.
And every time they're trying to get the barrels, the shark's right under.
Yeah.
So that was yeah, that was cool. Also, a little side note that I noticed in Jaws 2,
Mm-hmm.
when Brody's drunk and he's coming home from having been fired, one of the barrels is next to his front door,
Mm-hmm.
having been turned into a flower bed. I
Yeah.
thought that was a nice little thing.
It is a good homage paid to the original film because that's how him and Hooper get back. Is
Yeah,
they paddled their way back. Um,
yeah. Spoiler: not everyone survives.
yeah. Um, One of my favorite scenes is when they take the not Brody, but Hooper's boat, his great oceanographic boat, and he takes it out to see if they can find the shark. They're both drunk. It's kind of a funny scene at some points, but he goes. They find the fisherman's boat out a ways.
That whole sequence or scene is eerie.
It is.
It's because of the music and the fog and all
Mm-hmm.
that. It's actually one of my favorite scenes, and I'm glad you brought it up.
Exactly. That's may not be my favorite scene, but it's one of my favorite scenes. The I was watching it again last night, and I kind of thought and kind of got out of the moment because I thought, where's all this light under the boat coming from? And I quickly go back in the moment. I said, well, it is a research vessel, so he probably has lights mounted underneath to.
Yeah, I think he actually says that.
I don't know if I caught that or not, but he gets out and he pulls the shark tooth out, and right when he does that, this is like classic Spielberg, a gotcha moment. He grabs that shark tooth out, looks at it, and the next thing you know, the fisherman's dead, and he comes out of the hole in the boat.
Yeah.
And even though I've seen this movie thousand times, whatever, it gets me every time.
Yeah. It's it kind of happens just half a second after you expect it to happen.
Yeah,
You know, it's just the timing.
yeah.
Um, there was supposed to be more in that scene. The original footage, I believe, was a lot more gruesome.
Mm-hmm.
I've actually seen pictures of it, and when that Boy Scout leader gets killed,
Mm-hmm.
you see a shot of. I guess it's from the shark's vision. It swims past Brody's kid.
Mm-hmm.
There's a shot of the Boy Scout leader in his mouth,
Mm-hmm.
swimming past them. So he's. It looked horrific.
Oh, that's why.
Um,
Oh, sorry.
yeah, it's. I guess I'd want to see it, in a director's cut, but it wasn't needed
No.
because that scene was gruesome enough.
The only thing that it would help is to explain why Brody's son goes into shock.
Yeah, but
Because the
then
way,
again, you actually see the guy get chewed up anyway,
yeah,
though.
I mean, you got to think he sees it, and that's why. But the way they shoot that scene as he's being brought out of the water and he's unconscious or whatever, and then they focus in on Brody's son's legs, like, okay, he's all right. They don't really frame that part to make you think that it's shock at first. They want to hold the suspense that did Brody's son get hurt too.
Yeah, and I like that scene when you see the youngest kid sitting on the beach and you see the shark in the background. You can
Mm-hmm.
actually see how big it is.
Oh
You
yeah,
see the fins. That one I really like too. That was very well done.
yeah. I'm gonna put some interesting articles, I guess, articles in the description below about Bruce. For one, the last actual movie Bruce was originally kept in, I think it was Universal Studios Los Angeles, and they took it out, threw it away, something like that. But the last original casted shark was in. I'm trying to find. I'll find it and put it. Like I said, I'll put it in the description. But it was in California at a junkyard, and the guy who owned the junkyard bought the shark and several stunt cars from other movies and stuff when there was a backlot sale, and so they were able to get a hold of this, and it's now in a museum, the Academy Museum of Motion Pictures in Los Angeles, and it's been there for about 2 years now. So I'm going to put that down below because that's kind of some interesting reading. The Orca 2, which was the boat when you see it sink and the back end is being chomped up or whatever, that was in Martha's Vineyard for years, and fans would go and just chip pieces off. And so the people who owned it, or the studio, I can't remember which, they actually chopped it up into 1x1 squares, and then when they sold a documentary book or a book about the making of the movie, I think they gave it with the first, so many copies.
Hmm.
So I might put that in the description below too.
I guess you could call it a writer's block.
Yeah, you could. Um, I think another one of my favorite scenes is when Quint talks about the USS Indianapolis.
Yeah, that's one of the greatest scene performances in movie history, easily.
And if I remember right, that was all ad-libbed.
He wrote most of it and then
Okay.
ad-libbed the rest, I believe.
Yeah, but that was not originally what was scripted.
Yeah, I saw an interview with I think it was Richard Dreyfuss,
Mm-hmm.
and when Robert Shaw performed that um, speech, he was just sitting there trying hard to stay in character because he was so blown away.
Mm-hmm. Um, I think that really puts. I think that opens up Quint as a character. It's Ahab, basically, is what he is.
Yeah, in the
He.
book, I think he actually dies like Ahab too.
Mm-hmm.
He gets entangled in the barrel ropes or whatever, and the shark sinks with him on it.
Mm-hmm. Um, I think that scene does wonders.
Yeah,
I
it makes
know.
you feel. It makes you feel for Quint, and you kind of start rooting for him because
Mm-hmm.
up until then he's been kind of an asshole.
Yeah.
Well, he still is afterwards, but you can sympathize with him big time, really, because of all he's gone through.
Yeah. Um, I think that's probably my second favorite scene. So,
Which is your favorite, though?
like I said, I think it really is that boat scene when they're going to find the shark. Before all of this, after they find out that the shark that they've captured isn't the shark.
Yeah,
When they go out, that's just, the way it's shot. You like you said, the fog, the lights,
yeah, and the eerie music.
yeah.
It's like, yeah, um, makes you not want to be in a boat, doesn't it?
No, yeah, I love boats, but yeah, that's
Nothing
definitely
bad happens though. They find a corpse, but there's
yeah.
no shark around. But still, it's eerily foreshadowing, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. So when I was watching my DVD, I have an older copy that's an anniversary edition, so it has some cool stuff on it. One of them in the production notes, they say the first day of shooting, monumental changes faced the filmmakers, not the least of which was the consistently changing weather. More than once, with camera ready to roll, heavy fog would surge into and cancel the shot, or the tide would change. The sea sequences were photographed against real horizon, and at one point the Orca sank with all three stars aboard. As Star Roy Scheider explains, the wind, the waves, everything was moving. Nothing stayed the same. Often with the shot ready, the drifting tides would move everything out of position.
You
Let's see.
know.
It would take another hour and a half to re-anchor and get set again, only to have the next shot spoiled by an unwanted sailboat entering the frame.
Yeah, frustrating. But some wise fellow once said that the easiest movies to make are the ones that are the hardest to watch.
Mm-hmm.
And this one was hard to make, and it's easy to watch because it's
Yeah.
so awesome.
Uh,
I think that was Bruce Campbell who said it, to be honest.
I'll have to check that out, but that sounds like something he would say. It also says here, screenwriter Carl Gottlieb recalls the company spending a day on the ocean for 6 seconds of usable film. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I got some more there. We'll talk about it here in a little bit, but
It reminds me of the stuff I read about how George Lucas had so many problems with the first Star Wars movie.
yeah.
It's almost like mirroring Jaws.
Well, you bring that up. I've told you this before, that Jaws is the only reason why we have Star Wars.
Yeah, because of Spielberg.
Yeah.
He had pull because of Jaws.
Jaws became an international summer blockbuster, probably the first of its kind. And when that happened, he knew George Lucas, and he thought that this Star Wars, or whatever he called it before then, was worthy of being made into the movie. So he got George Lucas in connections with Alan Ladd at 20th Century Fox, and that's how the ball started rolling. At one point, when Star Wars was being screened, the first screening, nobody liked it. They thought it was horrid. They were clamoring about maybe we should pull the plug. And Spielberg pulled Lucas aside and said, I hope this isn't the movie you're planning on finishing. Because Spielberg felt that if Star Wars didn't make it, that his career would be in question then, because he opened the door for George Lucas.
Yeah. He put his career on the line for George.
Yeah. And like you said, these two films, Star Wars and Jaws, mirror each other in a lot of ways. What you see on screen does not nearly give you the idea of what was happening behind the scenes.
Yeah.
The problems, the rain, the weather, the mechanical set pieces that weren't working right. I think
Most of the good things also mirror each other.
Yeah.
Because both of them had pretty much perfect casting.
Yeah.
And the soundtrack made the movies.
Well, let's talk about that for a second. John Williams is the conductor and the writer of, I can't remember how many, but like at least 5 of the top grossing movies of all time.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's a coincidence.
No. He actually contributes a lot to those movies being what they are because of the music.
He helps the movie move forward in a fluid motion because of the way he does the music.
Yeah, and in the case of Jaws, the main theme, is once you've heard it once, you remember it.
Oh yeah.
But I wouldn't say that's the best bit of music in the movie, because the rest of the music sets the mood so well. Even that little happy, bittersweet tune at the end, it's gorgeous. I used to whistle that when I was a kid.
What I find funny is that it's what you said. The theme that everybody knows, the theme to Jaws, the dun dun, that isn't the best one, but it's not like Star Wars where each independent theme. It blends in so well to this movie that you don't realize what it's really doing for you and what you're watching.
Yeah, it's
a part of the movie so much that you just don't recognize it.
Yeah, the composer work John Williams did on this movie is kind of like an 11 out of 10, really.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I wouldn't disagree. Let's go down the cast a little bit here.
Yeah.
So the main 3 would be Roy Scheider, Robert Shaw, and Richard Dreyfuss. Robert Shaw died like 3 years after this movie was made.
Yeah.
He died of a heart attack. If I remember right, he was driving and pulled over to the side of the road and basically died.
Yeah. He was 51, I think. Wasn't that
Yeah.
old?
No, I'd have to go look for sure, but I'm pretty sure you're right.
He's one of those actors that steals scenes because they're so damn good.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I'd put Robert Shaw up there with Sean Connery in terms of acting ability and all that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, he was 51, and he died just shy of 20 days after his birthday.
Hmm.
So he lived almost exactly 51 years. But I'm trying to remember. He was in Battle of the Bulge. He was in a lot of good films, and like you
Yeah,
said,
he was in the Sting,
Yep.
and he was one of the villains in the second Bond movie, From Russia with Love.
Mm-hmm.
And Robin and Marion, he played the sheriff in that one, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, he was in a. Oh, he was also in another movie based on David Benchley's novels. The guy who also wrote Jaws.
Yeah.
It was called The Deep or something. It was Nick Nolte, and he was in it, and they were
Yep.
diving for looking for something in shipwrecks, I believe.
Yep. That was it actually in 77.
Yeah. Oh, and he's in the movie with Harrison Ford, Force 10 from Navarone.
Mm-hmm.
That's an awesome war movie.
That's something they don't make war movies the same.
No, they really don't.
Yeah, we'll have to look into some of those. Richard Dreyfuss, everybody knows who he is, but what you may not know is I'm trying to remember if it was Sharknado or
Piranha.
That's it. He reprises his role in Piranha as Hooper. He wears the same outfit, and when the movie was done, they had the name the same, everything was the same, and Spielberg or Universal or somebody stepped in and says, you can't do that.
Yeah.
So they changed the name, and I can't remember what name they gave him, but basically everything else stayed the same. So at one point you see him drinking a beer, and the beer is Amityville beer. So
also the drinking song from Jaws is playing on the radio.
Yeah.
Yes, well, I like that scene, but I get it though. They shouldn't have killed off a character from Jaws in Piranha.
Well, no, but I think it was just I don't know. It was supposed to be funny, I guess.
Yeah.
The name they eventually gave him was Matt Boyd instead of Matt Hooper. And so
Dreyfuss did a tremendous job on Jaws, but he ended up being overshadowed by Robert Shaw.
Well, yeah, but I think again Spielberg does a very good job, or whoever edited this movie did a really good job, because they give Dreyfuss and Schneider enough time on screen without Shaw to let their characters develop. So while the boat scenes, Shaw kind of overshadows everybody, it's not enough to really cause a problem in the movie. He comes across as he's a captain and he's telling them what to do, and they're kind of in awe of this almost stoic legend and what he's doing and the things he's saying.
Yeah, it's almost two movies because at the first half of the movie when they're on the island, it's more like a horror movie. That's when most of the horrific things happen. And as soon as they leave on the boat, it turns almost into an action movie of sorts,
Mm-hmm. It
which
does.
which I thought was really cool.
I'm trying to remember. You brought it up. Oh, you brought up the fact of you liking this movie, watching this movie a lot, but living on an island, and how it
Yeah,
doesn't
and
make much sense.
I used to be in a small boat as well that my parents owned. So I was out
Oh,
fishing a lot, and
there you go.
I paid attention to the water a little bit extra, to put
I'm
it
sure.
mildly.
Um, that is one of my favorite lines in this movie, where Matt Hooper says, "I'm not going to waste my time arguing with a man who's lining up to be a hot lunch." Um, Another one, Chief Brody, he's I think talking to Quint, and Quint's like, it's either Quint or Hooper, and he says, "You never go into the water. Why are you living on an island?" And Brody says, "It's only an island if you look at it from the water."
Yeah, brilliant line, and it's true.
Yeah. Um. So, I mean, there were more actors in this movie that were really accomplished actors. Ellen Brody, or not, I mean, Lorraine Gray, or Gary,
Yeah,
Murray Hamilton.
Murray Hamilton is amazing in this movie,
Yeah.
and in the second one too. He's
Hmm.
top notch.
And
He was actually the only actor that Spielberg was 100% sure he wanted.
hmm
That was the only one he wanted for the mayor.
I'm
He
trying to
uh,
remember who the
he
other
was trying to get
people. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, yeah, he was trying to get all kinds of actors for the other
Hmm.
parts, but Murray Hamilton was the only one he wanted, first choice.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember who else he wanted for Quint. Um,
Charlton Heston.
that's it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but he couldn't cast him because Heston had been in two disaster movies earlier, and if they cast him, they felt, yeah, the shark doesn't have a chance because Charlton Heston is in it.
Yeah. Robert Shaw's character Quint was largely based on the shark hunter Frank Mundus, who began shark fishing in 1951 off Montauk in Long Island, New York.
That I didn't know.
Yeah. Well, let's see here. 8 facts. Let's see here. 8 facts you may not know about Robert Shaw as Jaws Quint. Shaw wasn't director Steven Spielberg's first choice, which we just talked about. He initially wanted Lee Marvin. Uh,
Yeah. Gregory Peck too.
yeah. And then Shaw took some convincing before would accept the role. It says he wasn't sure if the movie was right for him. He read the book and hated the bestseller. Jaws was not a novel, he commented. It was a story written by committee, a piece of S work. But Shaw's wife, the actress Mary Ure, I'm not sure, Ure, and his secretary both begged him to take the role, and he finally agreed. In the end, he was glad he caved in. The last time they were that enthusiastic was From Russia with Love, and they were right.
Yeah.
Um, Looking at that. Our original introduction to Quint was nixed by Gregory Peck. Spielberg's initial vision for Quint's first scene was that he'd be sitting in a movie theater watching Moby Dick, and laughing his head off. One by one, the other audience members would get fed up and leave until Quint was alone in the theater, his laughing echoing down the street as he watched the tale of the seafaring obsession. But Spielberg was unable to secure the rights to the 1956 film because Peck, who starred as Ahab, was uncomfortable with his performance and didn't fancy the idea of mocking the scene. As it turned out, Quint got our attention well enough as Spielberg introduced him with a screeching of his fingernails on the blackboard. The movie's best scene required a do-over. Okay, so we all agree that the USS Indianapolis speech was the best part of the movie, right? Even if it's not your personal top scene, most Jaw fans agrees that it's captivating clearly in the running for the movie's best monologue. Well, Shaw had an idea for how to make it come out just right. The characters are drinking during the scene leading up to the monologue. He reasoned, so in the spirit of dramatic accuracy, he should drink a bit too. Just a little. A wee tipple. Or, as it turned out, so much that he blacked out and had to be carried back to the set. Late that night, Shaw called Spielberg, panicked, unable to remember if he had done anything embarrassing. He asked that they try the scene again the next day. So,
That's pretty cool.
there's several others. I'll put this in the description below so we don't just stay on that.
I actually spot a little trivia right above your head. The picture of the orca, the ship.
Mm-hmm.
The orca, the animal, is the only natural enemy, except for humans, that the shark has. They eat sharks.
I think
Killer
that
whales.
was... Oh, go ahead.
Probably deliberate,
Yeah.
but yeah, it just struck me like, those eat sharks.
Okay, so interesting facts about the movie. The book's author makes a cameo in the movie.
Yeah, he's the reporter.
Exactly.
Also, Steven Spielberg plays the clarinet
Mm-hmm.
at the beach.
And it's also he also is the voice of the Amity Island dispatcher who calls Quint's boat the Orca with Sheriff Brody's wife on the line.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. Okay. Steven Spielberg got the directing role because of a duel.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Fun movie.
Mm-hmm. Or because of Duel. Spielberg was chosen to direct Jaws because producers Richard Zanuck and David Brown, who had also worked with the then 28-year-old director on the 1974 film The Sugarland Express, because of his film Duel, which featured a maniacal trucker terrorizing a mild-mannered driver. The producers thought that the movie was thematically similar to the story for Jaws, making Spielberg a great fit.
Yeah, I'd agree to that.
What's the one where all the semis come alive?
Oh,
I can't never remember the name.
the one where AC/DC has the whole soundtrack, right?
Yeah.
Maximum Overdrive.
Thank you. That's it.
Yeah.
Did Spielberg do that?
No, I don't think so.
I don't remember. I don't know why I think maybe he had something to do with producing or something. I don't know. Okay, there's not a lot of Jaws in Jaws. The shark doesn't fully appear in a shot until 1 hour and 21 minutes into the 2-hour film. The reason it isn't shown is because the mechanical shark that was built rarely worked during filming. So Spielberg had to create inventive ways like Quint's yellow barrels to shoot around the non-functional shark.
Well, That's not entirely true because the shark shows up earlier when he takes the Boy Scout uh, leader.
Yeah, but I'm wondering if they're talking about. Hold on, it doesn't fully appear,
Oh yeah,
meaning the full length, full size. So, because if you go and look at pictures, you'll see that it actually was on a rotating wheel that
yeah,
would help it move.
yeah. The only one I can think of is right before the Boy Scout guy gets
Mm-hmm.
killed. You see the fin
Mm-hmm.
and both fins, and you can see actually the length of it. But I'm guessing they're probably dragging it behind a boat or something.
Or I don't know. They could have just made a plank with those fins on it too. There's a lot
Yeah,
of ways they could have done that, and that was the thing. Spielberg had to get inventive to get his point across, which makes it again that much better of a movie when you know that it isn't what they wanted. They wanted to show the shark a lot more.
it's probably one hell of a learning experience too, though, for
Well,
a director.
it wasn't his first film, as we've mentioned, but it was his first big film.
Yeah, and he has to, given the production problems, he has to come up with all kinds of ideas
Yeah.
to get it work, which is probably invaluable lessons in the end.
Mm-hmm. It took a very long time to make. Jaws was marred with so many technical problems, including the shark not working and shooting in the Atlantic Ocean, that the original scheduled 65-day shoot ballooned into 159 days, not counting post production.
That's more than double.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and studios don't like that.
No, I don't think anyone likes that.
Well, I believe him and Lucas both talk about anxiety during the shootings as the days kept going.
Probably one of the arguments Spielberg used to convince them to keep Star Wars going because he had the same problems, and so he could go, look what happened when you trusted me. You got a blockbuster.
And I'm sure that's what he said. And when they showed the original screening, that's when he pulled Lucas aside and said, tell me you got more than this.
Yeah,
Okay, so Amity Island was actually Martha's Vineyard. I think most people know that by now. The shark weighed more than a ton. The pneumatically powered shark, designed and built by production designer Joe Alves, weighed in at 1.2 tons and measured 25 feet in length. Part of the reason that Martha's Vineyard was chosen as a location because the surrounding ocean bed had a depth of 35 feet for up to 12 miles offshore, which was perfect for scenes that required the mechanical shark rig to be rested on the shallow floor.
yeah.
Spielberg took inspiration from his legal counsel. The director nicknamed the shark Bruce after his lawyer, Bruce Rammer, who is who also currently represents other celebrities like Demi Moore, Ben Stiller, and Clint Eastwood.
I believe they named the shark in Finding Nemo,
Yep,
Bruce as well after the shark in Jaws.
exactly. And it performed much better than the one in Jaws.
Yeah, probably did. Yeah, wasn't as gruesome though.
No, no. I think that was funny because you could almost tell that they were playing it up because the size of his mouth and all that.
Yeah,
Yeah. Some good old fashioned elbow grease helped create the opening scene. The opening scene took 3 days to shoot to achieve the jolting motions of the shark attacking the swimmer in the opening sequence. A harness with cables was attached to actress Susan Backlany's legs, and was pulled by crew members back and forth along the shoreline. Spielberg told the crew not to let Backlany know when she would be yanked back and forth, so her terrified reaction is genuine. Spielberg went on to spoof his own opening sequence for Jaws in his 1979 World War II comedy, 1941. The scene features Backlany once again taking a skinny dip at the beach, but instead of being attacked by a shark, she's scooped up by a passing Japanese submarine.
That's pretty fun. Mm-hmm. He also waterboarded her.
Really?
To get the drowning sounds. Dreyfuss actually pointed that out too. He hung her upside down and poured the water on her face to get the gagging sounds. He recorded it.
That would do it.
Yeah, it's in the trivia on IMDb as well. He'd get in trouble for that today.
But by all means, if you got stuff to throw in, please do.
Yeah, no, I just remember. I was looking at it earlier. Oh, another fun thing I noticed: the actress who played Mrs. Kintner, who lost her, the second victim.
Yeah,
is the boy at the beach, Alex Kintner.
Actually, third victim.
Yeah, the dog. Sorry,
the dog's second.
Yeah, she went into a seafood restaurant a few years ago. And she looked at the menu, and the menu had something called the Alex Kintner, sandwich or something. And she spoke to the owner, and it turns out the owner is the kid who played her son in the movie, and she hadn't seen him since the movie.
Oh, wow.
That's a pretty cool story, right?
Yeah, that's the kind of thing that, it's that of all the gin joints.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Saw that one on IMDb as well.
Wow.
And the shot of the shooting star is real.
Yeah.
It looks a bit fake in the movie, but it actually happened. Which added a lot to the mood, I thought.
Yeah. Spielberg, he says that's like one of the biggest questions he gets asked still, is if that was real. And while you could have animated that, you look at it, when you watch it, it does look real. So
I always thought it looked fake because it kind of skips, but it's apparently it's real. That's cool.
Mm-hmm. Some eavesdropping got Roy Scheider the lead. Scheider got the part of Chief Brody after overhearing Spielberg talking to a friend at a Hollywood party about the scene where the shark leaps out of the water and onto Quint's boat. Scheider was instantly enthralled and asked Spielberg if he could be in the film. Spielberg loved Scheider from his role in The French Connection and later offered the actor the part.
Also pretty cool.
What was that?
Also pretty cool.
Yeah. Who says listening in on other people's conversation doesn't get you anywhere?
Yeah. Well, it gets you a lot of places in Hollywood, I assume.
Mm-hmm. We know Richard Dreyfuss was not the first choice to play Hooper. John Voight, Timothy Bottoms, and Jeff Bridges were his initial choices. When none of them could commit to the role, Spielberg's friend George Lucas suggested Richard Dreyfuss, whom Lucas has directed in American Graffiti. Dreyfuss would later accept the part because he thought he was terrible in the title role of the film The Apprenticeship of Duddy Kravitz a year earlier. So he was probably worried about having a career still.
Yeah. Dreyfuss, though, became huge.
Oh, yeah.
He was in a lot of cool stuff back then.
Uh-huh. Well, I mean, Mr. Holland's Opus, that was him, wasn't it?
Yeah, Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Oh, yeah. Well, he was shooting Close Encounters, I think, when the second movie was being shot. So that was another reason why he wasn't in the second one.
He's mentioned though in the
Yes.
second one,
Mm-hmm.
and they solved it in a very good way because Hooper mentions he's gonna be on a ship called the Aurora in the Antarctic or something,
Mm-hmm.
and he mentions this in the first movie, and in the second movie, Brody tries to contact him and he can't get him, and then later his wife uh, delivers a message that Hooper is on the Aurora and can't be contacted until spring,
Yeah.
which is great, you know,
I think
good way
it's
to solve the problem.
Yeah, I think it's funny that they didn't go into what the book goes into, that Hooper shows up after Brody contacts the Institute, but that Hooper shows up because he already has an ongoing affair with Brody's wife.
Yeah, there's two Hoopers, aren't there? Two
Yes, there's
brothers.
him and his
Uh,
brother.
they both get eaten.
Yes, the scene, if you've seen the movie, where he goes into the cage at the very end, he gets killed in that scene, or in that part of the book, and they kept him alive. I'm sure because they wanted him in the second one, and I'm sure they were talking sequel,
I
but
don't know,
I don't
but
know.
I guess it's okay that he got away.
Hmm.
They
It
don't
doesn't
allow
hurt the
to.
film at all.
Yeah, it's actually very rare where two people survive a movie like that. It's usually
Hmm.
one.
Yeah. Um, so a local Martha's Vineyard fisherman was the real Quint. Shaw based his performance of Quint on a Martha's Vineyard native and fisherman, Craig Kingsbury, a non actor who appears in the film as Ben Gardner. Kingsbury helped Shaw with his accent and allegedly told Shaw old sea stories that the actor incorporated into his improvised dialogue as Quint.
That's pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm. See here. The book was different from the movie, go figure. Spielberg added an off-screen improv moment. The scene where Brody's son Sean mimics his father's movements at the dinner table was based on the real thing that happened between Schneider and child actor Jay Mello in between takes. Spielberg loved the off-cuff moment so much that he restaged it and put it in the movie.
That's a very good scene too.
And then another iconic moment was also a spontaneous one. Brody's famous "You're gonna need a bigger boat." That line was entirely improv by Scheider on the day of shooting.
Yeah, I actually knew that one.
Yeah.
Uh, Funny how Im- improv stuff tend to end up great in movies.
When you listen to Lucas talk about Empire Strikes Back, and when Ford says "I know," the line originally was "I love you too,"
Yeah,
and it never came across right. And so, in a fit of "we've got to get this done," he just said, "Just say something," and that's when he did the "I know" line. And that's really, I think, when a director realizes that that line that actor just said works so perfectly in the movie, a good director is going to say, cut, scene, print it. They're not going to question it. They know.
yeah, and the best actors understand the characters so well uh, that it's a good thing that the directors trust them.
Mm-hmm.
It's I don't think that happens a lot these days. Probably because the actors aren't as good as they used to be. I don't know.
Yeah, probably. Well, I'm
Shots
going to put,
fired.
yeah, I'm going to put this article in the description below too. But just so we don't run over on our time too much, our last movie talk was 2 hours and something, almost, or was it 3 hours?
Oh yeah, it was 3.
Oh,
Longer
wow.
than the movie.
Yeah. So we're trying to format this a little different. But we've given you some tidbits. We've explained the movie. We've talked about our favorite scenes. So let's go ahead and let's give it a rating. 1 to 5?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll let you go first.
5. No question about it.
Okay. Any particular reasons?
No, it's a classic for a reason, or other many reasons.
Yes.
It's a perfect storm. All the actors fit well. The soundtrack, the look of the movie, the feel of it, all of it it's top notch.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I would give it a 5. I mean, I guess I would also go possibly like a 4.7.
What?
Yeah, I would go 5.
Good.
I'll stop there. I don't want to nitpick this movie. This movie still stands on its own today, even though you could say that the shark kind of has lost its flair, but it still looks real. And actually,
but you need to judge it on when it was made too.
Well, yes, but I'm going to say this about it. I think that the way the shark looks now actually gives it more of a realism, because it doesn't look as fake as something they would make now. Whatever they would make now with CGI, or even if they were to do it the same way, would look much crisper and sleeker.
I've actually noticed this. The shark, I bet, would look good in CGI because of the quality nowadays. But the water droplets, when it splashes around the shark, that always looks fake. I mean, if you've seen falling water, that CGI, it's something about the way it falls. It's too slow or something.
Yeah.
It just looks off. So I bet the shark would look good, but everything around it would look weird.
I think the way the shark looks in it originally looks more real, because it looks beat up, it looks old, and you feel like it's been doing this for a while.
Yeah.
I'm afraid that with CGI, they make it look too clean, too perfect.
Yeah, give it some scars.
Yeah. And I think also that part of that was being in the salt water was affecting the skin they had on it and all of that. So all of that helped it, actually, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And if you look at the picture on the top left, where Brody is above the shark looks really good in that shot.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I'm talking about. It even in the one underneath that, it looks a little weird because it's just coming out of the water, but the way it looks is very realistic compared to what you would expect it to be. They did a very good job taking time on something that wasn't shown that much.
Yeah. Also, another good shot of the shark is when I think it's Brody. He's up in the crow's nest, in the on the ship, and you see a top down shot, and you see the shark swimming under the boat past it, and you see the whole thing.
Yeah,
that one looks really, really good. And if they'd done that in CGI, it would be like shadowy, and you can I saw a movie called what was it, The Reef or something?
Mm-hmm.
That lady trapped on a little reef and there's a shark around it. Every time you see the shadow of the shark and stuff in the water, it looks fake. And I can
Yeah.
picture that happening if they had done that in CGI nowadays. That particular shot.
So we got 2 5s. We got a perfect movie. And anything else you'd like to say?
Well, I'm just glad you came to your senses about that 4.7.
I'll stick with 5.
Good.
So we'll do another one of these here soon. And Stig, I greatly appreciate you being here again. Why don't you tell everybody where they can find you?
Always a pleasure to be on your channel, Chris. Yeah,
Thank
always
you.
have a lot of fun.
Well, I appreciate it. Tell everybody about you, what you're about, and where they can find you.
Oh, I'm not a YouTuber at all. I just
Tell
have a
that to
couple
the
of
people who watch your videos.
Yeah, I just have a couple of tiny ones at my channel, but it's just they're just there because of peer pressure. So I guess all my content is on other people's channel, I suppose. But if you want good content, though, go sub to Mary Mayhem. She has a good channel. Who else? I'm sure there's someone. Miss Sarcastic Nerd is good.
Yeah.
Proper Jeremy.
Mm-hmm.
All good people. So don't sub to me. Sub to them. They're YouTubers and they need the subs. And they're all good people. So
if you want to sub to Stig, by all means, sub to this channel too. We have you on for this, and this is going to be a regular bit. So
yeah.
Well,
and have a great weekend, people, and thank you for watching. Hope we made some sense. And go watch Jaws if you haven't seen it.
Yes.
Even though we spoiled it.
Oh, I don't think we spoiled it. We don't tell everything. It'll still get them.
Yeah.
Well, with that said, again, I'm Chris Knight. This is the Real Review 3000, and you've been watching Movie Talk with Chris and Stig. Have a good day, guys. Bye.
Have a good day.
Hey guys, thanks for checking us out. Be sure to subscribe to both channels, and make sure to check out our friends in the Fandom Minutes. You can find us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and BitChute, and you can also send us an email at sean@seanstackhousereacts.com and chrisknight@therealreview3000.com. And be sure to swing by our Teespring store to pick up some awesome merchandise.